Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Astrike, and I'm an Associate Dean here in the Edwards College of Humanities and Fine Arts. And I have the privilege today of spending a little time with Kaitlyn Maines-Presley, who is the college's new Director of Student Success, Recruitment, and Career Transition. Welcome, Kaitlyn. That's a long title.
Yes, it is.
So, can you tell us a little bit about what it is you've been hired to do here at Coastal and how you can help our students succeed?
Absolutely. So there are three parts to what I'm doing, obviously, with the three parts of the title. So we'll start with the student success part. So when I'm working with students and attempting to enhance student success within the Edwards College, I will be working on coordinating special events that I think might be helpful for them and help them in the process to be successful. For example, we're going to be doing a resume workshop for COFA students. I'm planning on doing an event for unconventional study tips, and a couple of other things along those lines. In addition to that, I am also working with probation and suspension students and advisory students. So I'll be working with them to hopefully get their GPAs up, start getting engaged in classes more on the university's campus more, and really just helping be a listening ear, a helping hand, things like that. Also, with student success, I'll be working on programming with various offices. For example, I'll be working with career services. I'll be working with admissions, alumni engagement of various offices across campus. And I'm going to be kind of like a liaison of our college and working and partnering with them to create events and other cool things. And then also the additional parts of my title, I'll be working with recruitment. So I will be working with admissions a little bit. I'll be working with our dean in the college to go to specialized events within high schools. And then for the career transition part of my title, I will be working and partnering with career services, and I will be helping our students find what they want to do in life, their passions, and guiding them to that and helping them perfect their resume, their cover letter, helping them find internships, and really just helping all of our students be successful the best way that I can. Because it's hard to navigate college. And when you're, maybe a first generation college student, or you are from a historically excluded community, you might need some extra help, some extra guidance. So that's kind of what I'm here for.
So, let's say that I'm a student. Maybe I'm new to Coastal. Maybe I'm a first generation college student. And 4 or 5 weeks into the semester, I'm just struggling a little bit. Like maybe I'm not feeling like I'm keeping up academically. Maybe I'm struggling just with college life. Maybe I'm just lonely, right? And I remember that you came to talk at say an orientation, or maybe I saw this video and I'm thinking, okay, Director of Student Success. I'm a student. I want to be successful. I'm going to stop by and see Miss Maines-Presley. Like, how could you help me? How would you help? Like, what would you do for me, or where would you send me that would maybe help me succeed a little better?
Of course. So I think step one would be figuring out what exactly is the problem. I would have them explain to me what exactly that they're feeling. What are they experiencing? Are you feeling isolated because, you're not getting along with your roommates? Are you feeling isolated because you haven't gotten more involved on campus? Are you struggling in your classes because you don't understand how to study? Because in high schools, studying in high school and studying in college are two very, very different things. Just from my own experience, I didn't study much in high school. I was one of those students who was able to, intake information very well and move forward. And I didn't have to study much. But once college hit, I realized very quickly that there is a lot more intensive studying needed in order to be successful in your courses. So what I would do is kind of narrow down what exactly the problem is, and then figure out a really great resource to send them to, or possibly I might be able to help them myself. But we have great resources on campus like academic coaching. Academic coaching would be able to help them with organization, scheduling, very cool study tips, test taking tips. Also, I would be able to direct them to places like counseling services. what's great about the fact that I am in this role is I'm actually an alumna of the university. So I have a lot of great insider knowledge that might be able to help students navigate these processes, because it's very challenging. It's very intimidating sometimes. And having someone to break down their experiences and be able to communicate that, and that might be helpful for the students to hear that experience, and then they can have that knowledge in their mind while they go to seek out these services. It might be a little bit easier for them to navigate that way.
Great. So I'm going to ask you a little bit about your personal background in just a second, but it sounds like the takeaway is, even if my specific problem doesn't fall under your portfolio, you're a good place to start, and you can kind of steer me in the right direction. Maybe you are the person to help me, but if not, you can point me in the right direction.
Absolutely. And I'm one of those people, if I have the time, I will walk you over to that location. I like to get to know my students on a more personal, professional level. So if I have the time, and in most cases I probably do, I will even walk you over to that resource. I will go through the website with you to navigate what you need to do. What kind of appointments do you need to make? What appointment calendar do they use? Because there's a lot of confusing nuances within our college, within our university, that are kind of hard to navigate if you're not aware of them.
So I know that before taking this job, you mentioned that you were an alum, and we'll go that far back in time in a second, but immediately before taking this job, you were an academic advisor.
Yes.
So could you just talk a little bit about how this job is different from being an academic advisor, but then also, why are you so excited about this particular job?
Yes. So with academic advising, I was only really seeing a small portion of our population. I was seeing comm majors with specific last names, and I was seeing languages and intercultural studies students. Now that I'm in this role, I get to see all of the students. So I'm super excited about that. I'm a very outgoing, personable, extroverted person. So I love getting to know people. I love getting to help people. And I got to do that in advising, absolutely. But I think in this role, it will definitely be more detailed. And I will be able to have a little bit more time to sit down and really help these students and guide these students. And I'm really honestly excited to have a larger population of students to help. Because I have heard from various students that it's a confusing process to navigate, and just having someone who is knowledgeable on these things would be very helpful.
Absolutely. And we're all excited to have all of the students back on campus this fall.
Me too.
We're ready to go. So you mentioned that you went to Coastal. You are an alum here, Mighty Chanticleer, Chants Up, et cetera, et cetera. What was your major? What did you study when you were here? What did you want to do when you finished your degree? And then how did you end up staying here at Coastal after you graduated?
So very confusing process for me coming in from high school, because I actually went to high school in Japan. So we didn't get to have any recruitment fairs. I didn't know anything about college. When I came back to the United States, my senior year of high school, I was kind of thrown into it, and everyone's like, "Where are you going to college? Where are you going to college?" And me never being presented the opportunities before, it was very overwhelming, very confusing. And I came across Coastal, and I just, from the get-go, I absolutely loved it. I work with their admissions office. I still have I call them artifacts. I have my letter of acceptance. I have my handwritten postcard from one of the tour guides. I absolutely felt connected. And why I was in Japan, let me back up and get to that reason. My dad's actually a Marine, so we were overseas, and then we came back here, and I also got involved with the Veteran Services Office, and they were also super helpful. So what really drove me to come to Coastal was just the wonderful, just the friendliness of everyone, the willingness to go above and beyond to help. So that's what brought me to Coastal. And then once I got here, I did not know what I wanted to do. So I actually ended up changing my major 6 times while I was at Coastal. And I think I think that experience will make me even more successful in my position because I understand what it's like to not know what you want to do. I understand what it's like to be a student on advisory, on probation. I understand what it's like to, see a D on your final grades and feel upset and just overall confused. And I'm really excited to help help students navigate that because I didn't have that. And I think the reason for that is because we didn't have these mechanisms in place when I was a student. We didn't have a director of student success. We didn't have the academic coaching department. We didn't have a lot of these great resources that we have now. And I think with early intervention, we can stop these things from happening, the experiences that I had. And once I found my place in Coastal, it was a game changer. I found the support that I needed. I found the passion that I was missing. I always knew I wanted to be an educator. For example, I started off as early education and realized I wasn't a big fan of children. Bad place to be if you're not a huge fan of children. So that was like my starting point. I went to music, I went to history, I went to your department in English. I went a lot of places, and I ended up in the Department of Communication, Media, and Culture. And I focused in health communication because I'm a big advocate for mental health. So that really spoke to me, and I actually minored in English, which I loved. So that's where I ended up. And then once I graduated in 2017 with my bachelor's degree in communication, I jumped right into the MALS program, which is the Master of Arts in Liberal Studies, and I focused in communication. The MA in communication was not available yet. So what we did was I I would say guinea pig for their comm program. And I just absolutely fell in love. I found my passion with teaching, which I actually kind of lost at some point because when I got into communication, I didn't think there were teaching options available or education focused positions. I didn't think that was an option for me anymore. So I kind of closed that door and I accepted it. And then I got into my master's program and I worked with my mentor, Dr. Holliday, and I taught a portion of his media effects course. Mm-hmm. And boom, that was it. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I knew that I was meant to be in higher education. I knew I was meant to teach in some capacity, and I knew that I was meant to help students. So that's kind of how I ended up here.
I love hearing those stories. I love the moment when in the story, the person can say, boom, like that's when the light bulb turned on and that's when I knew it. But it's amazing the way so many people's stories have the commonness, which is that it's a crooked path. I think we do students a disservice when we just basically say, okay, you're 17, you're 18, what do you want to do? And let's just do it as if it was a straight path, right? Yep. Who knows what they want to do when they're 17 or 18, really? Right. So it's great to hear that it's perfectly normal to not know, to switch midstream, to switch 2 or 3 or 4 times midstream, if that's what it takes. Sometimes the light bulb goes on, right after you graduate, undergrad, sometimes grad school, sometimes the light bulb turns on when you're 40, whatever. But it's always sort of a crooked path, and it's never quite as neat as you think it's going to be, which is great to hear. Let me ask you, let's get to the important stuff now, Kaitlyn. What's your favorite place on campus that maybe people don't know about? Now, of course, I understand that if you say it, people will now hear about it and it might ruin that place. So what's on campus that you really, really like? Like if you're stressed out or whatever, you go there or you just sort of like feel good in that spot.
So I have 2 parts kind of this. One part being my favorite place to kind of decompress as a student and places that I go now. So the first place that I always went to as a student to decompress and kind of, have a moment to myself when I needed it was the Edwards Courtyard. And I know it's not a super hidden place.
The Edwards building is so confusing that maybe it is kind of hidden.
Maybe it is.
Look on students' faces as they walk around this building, like, where am I? It's like, but anyway,
I just loved that it was a calm place. They have the fountain that was really calming for me. So I would sit close to that. I would, read my book. I would study my notes that I took in class. Sometimes I would just take a moment and breathe. I didn't need to study. I didn't need to do those things right then and there. What I needed in that moment of time was silence and, appreciation for where I am and what I'm doing, and acknowledging that I'm proud of myself. Sometimes I needed those moments too. And the Edwards Courtyard was that place for me to have those moments. And normally it's actually not very packed, which is mind-blowing to me, because it's a beautiful space. The garden area is beautiful, the fountain, there's places for shade, there's places to be in the sun, and I actually found that area for myself when I had a professor take us outside to have class, and that was kind of the moment for me to find and appreciate that space. So I'm grateful for that professor. I can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but I am very grateful for that professor introducing me to that space. Now that I am in my professional role, I normally find an empty classroom. That's very calming to me. Just having a moment in there in complete silence. Not even the fountain that's not in there. That sound. Sometimes it's nice to just have that complete silence, that complete alone. And normally there aren't many empty classrooms, so when I do find one, it's a win. But yeah.
So when you first came to Coastal, you mentioned you moved around quite a bit. You lived in Japan, et cetera, and you mentioned that one of the things that struck you was just how nice and friendly people were here. What about the campus itself struck you when you first decided, like, this is my place, this is where I'm going to be the next 4 years?
I can't remember off the top of my head what exactly struck me. I think it all kind of hit me at once, just the overall beauty of our campus. What I did love about our campus was the fact that it's a closed campus. So closed campus meaning, you're not in the middle of a big city. Your campus, your classes are probably going to be closer together. I liked that because I wanted a close-knit community, and that's what Coastal gave me. As a military kid moving around so much, you really struggle to find that community. And when I came to Coastal and I just saw the overall beauty, the posters on the walls with all the cool groups and organizations and events that were happening, I felt immediately that, this was a community that I was part of. And that was something that was very important to me as someone who just never had that community. And that's actually why I ended up staying here for so long. Because, again, being a military child, you don't have time to put down roots. You're moving every 2 to 3 years. So when I finally put down those roots, I'm not leaving. Now I'm happy, I'm content, and I'm finally able to find, have a home somewhere. And that's something I've never had. So I'm grateful for Coastal for that reason.
The home, the home feel here on campus. I absolutely get it. I felt that same thing when I first came here to Coastal in 2008. So you talked about community. Obviously, the most important ingredient in the community is the students, having the students here on campus. We talked about how excited we all are to bring the students fully back this fall. Besides that, what are you really looking forward to this fall?
I am really looking forward to all of the cool events that we're having on campus this fall. Being back in person is going to be very exciting for me because, again, I'm personable, I'm outgoing, I love interaction. So not having that and having a time where I worked from home was very stressful. It was not relaxing for me. I like having conversations with people and having sit downs and going to grab coffee with students when I can, things like that. I'm sorry, can you repeat the second part of the question? I kind of lost my train of thought.
I think you answered it. Just what you're looking forward to this fall, just sort of being here with everybody and the cultural events and all those things that make this place a community, it sounds like.
Yes, and we're actually going to be having a lot of events this upcoming year because it's our 20th anniversary with the Edwards College. So we're going to be having so many awesome events.
Including the Dean's Music on the Lawn series, which will happen every other Friday afternoon, late afternoon, early evening, 6 o'clock. So we'll have stuff happening outside. You don't have to worry about masking or anything like that because we're all going to be outside on the lawn, getting together, enjoying music. That's going to be fantastic. And a whole slate of events meant to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the college. So one of the things I think it's important for students to remember is that the people who work here at Coastal, faculty and staff, we're actual people. We have interests outside of our jobs. We are not just our job or our job title or whatever. So what kinds of things do you like to do when you're away from campus? Hobbies, interests, movies, what other things do you like to do?
So I have recently gotten into crochet, which I was very hesitant to do at first, just because everyone labels it as an elderly craft or something along those lines, which I don't believe that is the case at all. So when I finally picked up the craft, I fell in love with it. It was a very calming thing for me. It's something that really helped ease any stresses that I had. It was something very repetitive, easy to do. That's what I picked up actually over when we were working from home and quarantine and things like that. I used that crocheting as an outlet to kind of decompress and de-stress. I also like to be outdoors anytime that I can. I have recently gotten a little bit more adventurous. In the past, I've been scared to kind of go out and do things like zip lining and bike riding on difficult tracks, things like that. And I've actually started to pick those up a little bit more. I kayaked recently. That was something that I was afraid to do, that I just was like, I'm going to do it. We're going to go. We're going to have fun. And I actually had a blast. And it was...
Where did you go for that?
So my fiance actually works for Glass Bottom Kayaking, which is also a alumni-owned business. And they, let me pay my way, and I went along with my fiance and his family, and it was a great time. And that's in North Myrtle Beach. But yeah, I like to do outdoors stuff. I like to crochet, and I like to spend time with my fiance and my 2 cats, Lila and Vera.
Oh, nice. Lila and Vera. So we probably have 5 minutes or so left. And so I'll invite anybody who might be watching now to ask a question in the chat, in the Facebook chat, and we will get to the questions. But while we wait and see if any of those questions are coming in, a couple more questions for you, Kaitlyn. This is a weird one. This is kind of a weird one, but what kind of food do you like? You lived all over the world. You lived in Japan. What kind? We have a lot of different restaurant options here in Myrtle Beach, right? So what kind of food do you like?
So I'm actually ashamed of this, but while I was in Japan, I didn't have a single bite of Japanese food because I was a very picky eater, and I so regret it because now I'm not a picky eater, and I love to eat lots of different
things. You were in high school, right? I mean...
Yeah, I guess just a teenage thing. I don't know. But what I love to eat now, my favorite food is probably Mexican food for sure. I love to go to El Patio, which is a local place right down the street from Coastal. That's a great place. I love American food too, specifically fried pickles. Those are the best. Anything fried in my book is American. So fried pickles. And the best place for fried pickles, in my opinion, is probably Grumpy Monk. And that's another one.
I'm familiar with those pickles, Kaitlyn.
Okay, good. I'm not alone, but only with ranch. No extra stuff.
All right. Here's my last question for you. We are in the College of Humanities and Fine Arts. A lot of what we do here in the college is we produce art, we produce writing, we produce literature, we produce scholarship, we produce drama, we produce theater, we make movies. My question is, outside of Coastal, what movies, books, art, drama have you been getting into lately? What recommendations do you have for folks?
So, my all-time favorite show that I always highly recommend to people, and it's an animated show. I love animated shows basically because, they're kind of nostalgic for me. I love, they're comforting. And one that I've recently really fallen in love with is She-Ra and the Princess of Power, which is a DreamWorks one, which my mentor, Dr. Holliday, mentioned for me to, check out because he knew I'd like it. He always judges me because of my lack of popular culture references and my lack of media knowledge. Mostly, I would watch TV shows. I'm not too big into, I want to say reading, but that sounds horrible. I do love to read, but I like to read more academic work than I do nonfiction, fiction, things like that. I do occasionally like to read some works from poets. I like to think I'm a creative writer sometimes. Being an English minor, that was kind of what I wanted to do when I was an English major, is I wanted to kind of focus on creative writing. And I'm not the best, but I definitely, it's something that I love to do. I haven't picked it up too much recently, but I would love to get back into it. I don't have anyone off of the top of my head that I know I would, like to recommend to others. Yeah, I think it's really just, I'm obsessed with She-Ra and the Princess of Power. I think that's it. I think that's my personality.
Super fan for one particular show. I love it because I think when it comes to sort of consuming art and culture, there are two strategies. One way is to go wide, like consume tons of stuff. The other way is to go deep. You're going deep. One thing.
I also like Star Wars. Star Wars is another thing. That's mine and my fiance's thing. We love to just sit down and occasionally watch Star Wars. We watch the spin-offs. We also are really appreciative of Marvel culture. Yeah. So it's not just one thing, but again, I am kind of obsessed with She-Ra and the Princess of Power.
Okay,
so
this is the absolute last question. You've mentioned your fiance several times. Mm-hmm. When's the wedding?
We are getting married on December 5th, so towards the end of the semester, which many people have told me I'm brave to do. So I'm super excited for that. We are having not a medium-sized ceremony with our friends and family, and then we are honeymooning in Punta Cana.
Wow.
Yes, I'm excited.
We're not crazy to be going there in December. That sounds amazing.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kaitlyn, for taking the time to answer these questions today, for working here at the Edwards College, for working so closely with our students, for all the work you're going to do this fall, helping them succeed, and for having a business card with such a long title. Again, if there are any questions, feel free to put them in the Facebook chat. Even though this talk is now over, we'll try to get to them as soon as we can. And other than that, Kaitlyn, thank you again so much. And thanks to everybody else out there for watching.
Thank you.